Hey, good morning, good morning, good morning. Y'all know what it is. It's me, your boy Trey, and this is First Formation Morning Sports Talk. So come on and fall in with us so we can get to talking about some of the stuff that went over the weekend or what's just coming up in the upcoming week. So I'll give y'all a little time to get on in here. What's up? It's Monday morning, uh Juneteenth observances for some. Fall in. Come on, let's talk about it. I'll give y'all a little bit of time. Yes, yes, yes. I know some of y'all still in the high celebrating the NBA championship as all the Warriors fans are very exuberant. Warrior bandwagoners, very exuberant. Los Angeles Lakers fans, very exuberant. So let's talk about this a little bit. NBA season may be done, but it's not really done. Just getting ready to ramp back up and get started again. A couple of things to talk about. Some topics missed yesterday. Correction, on Friday. A few things, just a little bit. You know what? I'm starting to see a little bit of a trend. What's good with you, Steve? Good morning, bro. What's going on with you? I'm starting to see a little bit of a trend. For me personally, when I look and take a look at some of this stuff, uh, in which you're starting to see, in my opinion, a lot more situations to where uh, certain people, individuals who make a good amount of money off sports entertainment, are starting to be more and more and more in the news for, let's just call it bad decision making. In my opinion, more and more and more. That's what's up. Happy Father's Day related. Happy Father's Day to you too, bro. Matter of fact, I gotta get with you. Where you at right now? You in Georgia, right? I gotta hit you up. Got some unfinished business there, sir. But in any case, yeah. So I'm starting to see more of a trend, more of a trend, and where we have that exact thing to where these individuals, CEOs, CEOs of companies, COOs, or owners of everything are starting to be in the news more so due to the fact of just whatever issues and problems, in which some of them we have to speak about a little bit this morning, two particular. Um, which I'll get to it in just a second. Give me a second. We'll get right into that. But yeah, it's very, 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 very interesting um, when I see it. Why? I don't know. The old adage, more money, more problems, maybe. I don't know. But we're not seeing everybody with money with these same problems. So I don't think we could say that. But it's definitely um, something I think to talk about just a tad bit. That is one. That is one, Anthony. That is one. Definitely one. Oh, Vince McMahon is on one. So yes, Vince McMahon. And you actually, Anthony, funny that you say that. Vince is one, and the other, of course, being your beloved Washington Commanders owner, um, Mr. Snyder. So just a little conversation in regards to Vince and Snyder uh, this morning. It's crazy. Uh, So just to get into it a tad bit, a little bit, as we know, if you don't know, last week, uh, WWE CEO Vince McMahon. I don't know how many of y'all used to watch the WWE back in the day when it was the WWF and everything, the Hulk Hogan era, Ultimate Warrior era, on into the Rock areas, John Cena era, and all. But WWE CEO Vince McMahon, of course, is being investigated by his board for paying out a $3 million. I'm not gonna say settlement uh, or salary, but basically paying one particular employee out $3 million. Now, initially, this employee was hired for X amount of dollars, in which they incurred certain bonuses, I believe, and then they were basically paid $3 million at the insect. Now, of course, it's expected that there were certain things, certain relationships being had with said employee, and during these relationships, after the employee left the organization or left the company, that the employee was paid handsomely, in which is probably considered to be a little hush money. I don't know. Of course, one of the things that is prevalent is one of the things that's asked is that a one of Vince McMahon's children run the organization, the company, during while he's being sat out, or if he's voted to be out. In which, if I'm correct, the none of the family members want to do as such. So it's like now they're trying to figure out who, some way, some form of fashion, the they are certain WWE stars in which we have seen over the course of the years are still a part of the company, being that, of course, one of them, let's say Triple H, is married to the daughter of Vince McMahon, but has had some issues and health issues and problems in which probably wouldn't allow him to be a key candidate to run the day-to-day operations for the company. Uh, so yet it still remains, but yes, just like Anthony was saying, that is one of the situations. One of the problems is like, Vince, what's going on? Uh, why? Let's take this from a millionaire or billionaire's aspect and bring it and put it in perspective of just a regular old person. A lot of y'all can be considered regular old persons, unless you have trust or something like that, where it puts the millions in your pocket. But in any case, what is it? In any case, let's not just call it a relationship. I just asked this question: what is it that will drive you to certain? You know what? Disregard that question. Disregard that question. But I was about to ask. I was about disregard the answering, but I asked just for, saying, rhetorical purposes. What drives an individual to do these type of things? To go and do something where you potentially have to keep someone quiet, hush them, ensure that they don't have anything to say or anything to do. Like, where does any of this come from for the most part? What puts it in the mind of an individual to be like, you know what, I'm going to start this relationship, whether it be an ex affair or just being in relationships with people that you probably shouldn't be with. I know plenty of times in service you see that a lot of time where there's a lot of fraternizing uh, and inappropriate relationships being had. We're all human, understand it and get it. But in being human, you also get the option or the opportunity to make a decision not to engage in these things. I've been around the world and seen a lot of stuff, and this isn't so far fetched. It's just this is on a higher level than which I could be on. But hey, we digress and we continue on with it. So please hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you think of Mr. McMahon's current situation, if you have been following it or no. So we can talk about it just a little bit. maybe y'all have something to say that it could be like, okay, that we can sit and be like, all right, that's a good point. I see your point. But as of right now, I don't get it. Excuse me. So transition, moving on. NHL. We don't talk about it much, but it is prevalent, and we are currently in the NHL's. Must have been Trish Stratus. She did just leave. She did just leave. It could be Anthony. I mean, I have to look in depth. Well, I probably won't look too far in depth. I'll watch it as it comes out. But crazy, man. It's definitely a crazy situation. Um, Things that we do, men, women in general. But it could be Trish Stratus. She did just leave the organization. Um, we'll see. So, as like I was saying, the NHL, though we don't talk about it much, it is still going on as it is as well, finishing its final series of the season, as we know that to be the Stanley Cup, which has pitted the Tampa Bay Lightning. If y'all know or watch or pay attention to anything to the Stanley Cup, you know the Tampa Bay Lightning have become a very dominant organization in the last couple of years, winning multiple Stanley Cup finals and now in place to win yet another one. The Tampa Bay Lightning are taking on that of the Colorado uh, um, Avalanche. What's good? What's good, LB? Uh, to where they taking on the Colorado, the Avalanche, and it's not looking good for the Rocky right now. I mean, correction, looking for the Tampa Bay Lightning right now, down 2-0, currently in the best of seven series. Their first game was a hard fought one as they won, as the Avalanche won 4-3 in overtime for their game one. Game two was played in which on Saturday, in which Avalanche came out and thrashed, winning 7-0 in the game two, which sets the stage for tonight, 7 p.m. as they to game three in Colorado. Shout out to NBA. In Colorado, in which the Lightning have an opportunity to at least get one game in the series, or Avalanche has the opportunity to take a commanding 3-0 series lead, in which game four will be played once again in Denver on Wednesday, the 22nd, in which if Colorado gets the W tonight, they have an opportunity to sweep the series and win at home on his home court and yet again hoist the Stanley Cup trophy. So, yet to be seen. As we know, there has not been any team, from my distinction or what I believe or what I know, for any team to have raised the to have come back from a 3-0 deficit when it comes to a championship series. We've seen a couple 3-1s, of course, one of those being the Cleveland Cavaliers came back 3-1 over the Golden State Warriors to win their first championship in Cleveland. Um, but 3-0, I don't think has happened yet. Um, and at the dominance that the Avalanche is showing and currently playing, it would be interesting to know if they um, don't even get the win tonight, and if they aren't able to hold off the Lightning, who is considered a dynasty in the NHL currently. So yes, be sure to catch it. Um, NHL action tonight, 7 o'clock p.m. Game 3 Stanley Cup Finals. So getting back into some NBA action, although the NBA is done for this season, the season's over. Just like anything else, for the most part, is revving right back up as they have a quick turnaround as they come to the somewhat end of their season, where you have the NBA draft is to be held on Thursday. After the NBA draft, of course, a couple of weeks later, at the beginning of July, we get into, I guess you could say, the 2023 season as the free agency frenzy begins. But first, before we get to that, of course, excuse me, I'm so sorry. Shout out to the Golden State Warriors as they have their championship parade today, later on this afternoon, in the great state of California, San Francisco, the Bay Area, all that. I'm very sure there'll be plenty of stars and people who represent Golden State will be in attendance. They have their parade today. Fourth in the last 8 years, as they hoist it one more time. Get a chance to take a look at that. I'm sure it'll be on viewing, maybe ESPN or any other subsidiaries that are to the Golden State Warriors, or to connect to the Golden State Warriors. So again, like I said, that dynasty is well intact currently, in which to all they're even favored to win the 2022-2023 season. Of course, that's next season. They're currently favored to do that. That's what the odds makers are saying. They are the favorites. Um, Number one being Golden State. Secondly, Boston. Third, Brooklyn, Milwaukee, and the Los Angeles Clippers are in the top five, as FanDuel Sportsbook states, for the top odds for a player for teams to win a championship next year. Followed out by to close out the top 10 is at 6 Phoenix, 7 Miami, um, Phoenix, 8 Memphis 9, and the Dallas Mavericks 10 currently. Of course, we know that all drafts, free agencies, and anything of that nature. Of course, we don't know yet. I don't foresee anyone on any of these teams being lost in free agency currently. We do know in a concerted effort, Christian Wood was traded to the Dallas Mavericks, so he is now a Dallas Mavericks to potentially help out Luka Doncic. Of course, we do know that some of the players like Jalen Bronson is up for is up potentially in free agency, which he's considered to get a bag of one ports. Will he stay in Dallas, or will he shift on and go to somewhere else? We don't know that yet. What's good, Fred? How you doing, sir? Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Um, so we don't know that yet. A couple other things, a lot of different dominoes that can fall that can change that whole top 10 and flip it, and we end up going a whole nother route. So, yet to be seen how that's going to turn out. But of course, more on that later in this segment. Additionally, as we stated last week, um, Coach Kenny Atkinson was selected to be the next head coach for the Charlotte Hornets. Of course, we know Charlotte, additionally, on Thursday, they have 3 selections in the draft where they can pick and bring in their future. 2 of those selections are in the top 15. And then the other one, I think, is a 34th pick, which is 3 correction, 3 picks into the second round, but you already know the NBA only has 2 rounds for his draft. But for whatever reason, Coach Kenny Atkinson has um, decided not to take the head coaching position with the Charlotte Hornets, and he has decided to basically stay assistant with Golden State. Interesting turn of events. Of course, we've seen this before when we had a coach that signed on to coach a team and then decided at the end state that, okay, I'm not going to do this. Lets the team knows, and then continue and goes on. In some instances, it's worked for coaches. Of course, one being Coach McDaniels, in which he was slated to be the head coach for the Indianapolis Colts. Took the position, went through the playoffs, won the Super Bowl, came back, and basically said, "Nah, I'm going to stay in New England a little bit longer." End up staying, I think, about 7 to 8 more years, and now has taken the position as a head coach for the Las Vegas Raiders. So, in Kenny Atkinson's case, as we all know, he was the head coach for the Brooklyn uh, Nets as they rebuild, going, I think it was 119 and 190 in his 3 years while being there. Um, and then He was released. He went on to be assistant for the Los Angeles Clippers, and lastly, the Golden State Warriors, in which he's just won a championship, and he decided to stay. So hopefully, it builds in some. Maybe it might be something on the deal where, if I guess he's in a good position though. You got to think Luke Walton, when he was there, he did very well as an interim coach. Uh, and then went on to be the head coach in LA, and then from LA to Sacramento. Um, and then after that, of course, you had Coach Mike Brown, who is currently uh, doing the same thing when you think about it. He went from LA, um, except no, he went the opposite way. He went from LA. He went to Golden State, and now he's leaving Golden State to take over a head coaching position in Sacramento after Luke Walton was fired. So interesting enough. That's what you have going on. So Coach Atkinson will remain to be the assistant head coach for Golden State. Uh, and Charlotte will continue to look for their next head coach, which brings in a good question. I wonder if, of course, I know, Stanton, you're a Charlotte fan, and so this could be aimed towards you. Let me know what you think. Um, I What's going on in Charlotte? But additionally, do you foresee now? What happened, of course, is Coach D'Antoni might get interviews as well as Coach Darvingham and Terry Stotts. Of course, Darvingham is currently was selected as the Los Angeles Lakers new head coach. So of course he's out that running unless he decides he wants to go to Charlotte and he spurns the Lakers and say that I'm not going to be here. Um, Although I think his contract is already signed. Um, so I wonder, does Terry Stotts get a position? Gets another call? Does D'Antoni get another call? After the fact, you already told me I wasn't a person. Now you come back to me and say, okay, you're the next guy up. Would you like to? Do you take the position? Like, are you taking a position? I feel you, Anthony. I can understand that. I haven't heard anything in reference to Michael Jordan and his how it goes with him being the owner. Uh, Maybe I don't think it would probably be that. It's probably more so what you initially said is that hey, good morning, Miss Rebecca Jones. How you doing, Mama? Uh, it would be one of those situations in which I think is what you said initially, Anthony, that he basically wants to he's figured he's probably in a better situation at this point, so he wants to remain Golden State. like the standing was saying, that's something else where you would rather be assistant coach as opposed to being the head coach of an organization. In which I don't know, because I guess it could happen. I personally, let's take it back to being in the military. I had an opportunity to go, like I was a food service, like I said, culinary specialist, food service or whatever case like that. I had an opportunity to go and take over another dining facility while I was in Joint Base Lewis McCord. I had the opportunity to go take over a dining facility and be the DFAC manager, of course, in this, if you want to do a correlation, to be the head coach. I had the opportunity to go be a head coach of the DFAC at the prison in JBLM. At the time, I was the assistant manager, quote unquote, assistant coach of the DFAC in First Corps. I elected to not go take over that DFAC and stay the assistant coach. I mean, the assistant manager for the current facility. Of course, some stuff came to that. Conversations with a couple of people in which they said a couple of things, and I just elected. From a career aspect, it would have been good because, like, okay, he's being rated as a defect manager as opposed to an assistant defect manager. But I mean, where I was at, I had opportunities to be a defect manager and do certain things. Or in some cases, even as an assistant manager, I was treated as the dining facility manager because, especially when my senior or my dining facility manager wasn't around, so I still was working as such. So it just depends sometimes. So it's the same thing for Coach Atkinson. Maybe it's just a situation to where it's better suited, like Anthony was saying, and it's like a position where it's like, okay, I'm not going to do this yet. Let me go ahead and fall back for a little bit and look and see what comes up later. My opinion. I might have to make the 10th offer. Lestanton, no man, but yeah, I did repass on that. Yeah, definitely was a situation which I passed on, especially as a conversation. Like, nah, I'm good. I was like, let someone else have it. I'm good. I am good. Not on duty. Not on duty. Um, yeah. So, like I said again, uh, NBA draft coming up. Uh, be sure to check it out Thursday. Uh, see where your next player was, your next potential stars coming from. Of course, you have players like Jabari Smith from Auburn, Pablo Pancheo from Duke, and Chet Holmgren from Gonzaga that are expected to be the top three picks in this year's draft. But of course, what in what order they would go, we don't know. Heck, none of them might not even get drafted in the top three, or at least a couple of them might not get drafted, depending on what teams look and what they see, what they're scouting and deep dive into who they are, what the potential is for them coming into the league. We don't know. So it remains to be seen if they even get that call. When they get that call, of course, they will be present in that beloved green room, in which we have conversations a lot about that before. Being in the green room, I don't know if I want to be in the green room. Even if I was heralded, I don't know. We've been seeing plenty of times, whether it be the NBA, the NFL, for those drafts and where kids and players are in the room and they're there and you thought you were going to be a top high pick. It's a little different in NBA because, like I said, it's only 2 rounds, so it's only 60 opportunities in which you can be drafted. So I guess it's a little better fine tuned for you. You could be like, okay, I'll go ahead and take this invitation and sit here because I'm expected to be drafted in the top 60. But to sit there, I wouldn't want to be that person in the green room where I was at once uh, a middle, maybe a middle first rounder, and I go from being a middle first rounder to a late second rounder or something like that because all my other compadres and counterparts that I've sat and chopped it up with and talked to have all left, and I'm the only person there waiting to be drafted. Or what if I don't get drafted? I don't want those problems. Uh, mental, a mental that could be a mental damning at the end of the day, in my opinion, for some, and I wouldn't want to be in that position. But check it out Thursday night. See where the chips fall. So moving on, staying in the NBA, John Wall. It's a mystery. John Wall. As we know, about 5 years ago, John Wall was doing damages, comparative point guard, being looked at always in conversations and talks of if he was moving on to somewhere else. Uh, just the regular. We tend to do it all the time. Media, um, cooler talks, and just talk about these players, right? Then you go 3 years down the line. John Wall has played a total of 4 years, 4.5 years down the line. John Wall has, I believe, I played a total of 82 games, in which in those 82 games he has collected $150 million, and yet he is still owed more with 1 year remaining on his contract as he is in Houston still, which last year Houston sat him down. They didn't even play him anymore. But yeah, he still remains in Houston with 47, I believe 47 million remaining on his contract. I ask you guys, I ask you high speeds, do you foresee a situation in which John Wall will be traded or moved? Does he get another opportunity to play? Will he just be released and they eat whatever it is? Like, again, Bishop always says it, blood in the water, blood in the water, blood in the water. Of course, teams, even if they fought for remotely a second, John Wall would be effective in their organization. Are you paying $47 million for him? I don't think so. And you know Houston hasn't played him. Why would you even put your hand in that pocket and be like, you know what, we're gonna go ahead and pick up this? Nah, son, chill. Go ahead and release him. We'll let y'all get the brunt of that. And when we pick him up, we want to pick him up for less than what that. Uh, so currently, that's what we're looking at, John Wall. So I want to hear y'all, of course, high speeds. Let me know. Does John Wall stay in Houston? Does he get traded? Is he going to get released? What do you think? Is there even a good fit for John Wall at this point? Let me know. I'll give y'all a little tech, give you some time to chime in. But I want to know what you think in this history when it comes to John Wall. All right, I hear you, Anthony. Bite the bullet, you say, and eat the money and go ahead and cut him. That's a lot of cheddar. But I can understand. It's like, do you take the betterment of the team? It's like being in I guess you could relate it in being in relationship. Like you have this person that you adore, but it's just certain things in which you that is just eating at you that could potentially be a situation where it's like, this situation, I don't know. But it's like, do you go ahead and cut whatever it is, especially if you invested a lot in the situation, or do you continue to try to make it work with the ideal of a betterment of an opportunity of getting better? Um, that's the same thing in this particular relationship. John Wall to the Knicks. I don't know who's their current point guard. Who's the current point guard in New York? Is that I don't think it's R.J. Barrett. Who's the current point guard in New York? I wonder. But is that even befitting? John Wall to the Knicks. I don't know, Anthony. I have to look and see who's the current point guard. I mean, of course, the Knicks. I think have I think they have. Matter of fact, actually, let me do some. I think the Knicks have a draft choice. So if they needed a point guard, I'm very sure they'd probably be looking for that point guard uh during the draft. Let me see. Uh, Let me check out the NBA draft order. I want to see where if the Knicks even have a draft pick or what it is. Okay, so the Knicks do have a 11 pick. The Knicks have an 11 pick. They possess the 11th and the 42nd. So they do have two draft picks, in which maybe they can go after depending on guard if that's what they deem. Uh, I don't know. So we will see, Anthony. But I'm very sure John Wall isn't a choice for them to go to the Knicks. Unless, like you said, they release someone, he gets released, and then people decide, like, okay, I'll go ahead and take a chance on him. Excuse me. But of course, to further the discussion, as we look as the calendar starts to flip on the NBA season, a couple of things come to mind, right? The first thing being the money to be paid, because there's some extensions that are out there. The first one being that of Nikola Jokic, the center, back-to-back NBA MVP. Is it due to get a potential extension. He can get the supermax, in which he will be eligible for, I think, 5 years, $260 million, equating to 52 million a year. Does Denver stamp that and go ahead and take him, and go ahead and sign him for that, or does he do they give try to do something else? Is it possible for him to be there? I know they've already made a couple of moves to where they've traded Jermichael Green away, and now they're looking at, of course, rebuilding a different way. If you got the two-time MVP, you would think that the team has done something, for the most part. In this case, he's been doing all the heavy lifting because his top two players have been out with injuries for roughly 2 years now. So it'd be interesting. I know they're due to come back most likely, uh, and maybe make a difference, but he would be paid as such, and we'll see. Additionally, another person, when you talk about the extensions on slated to get paid, Devin Booker and Carl Anthony Towns, both um, able to get a supermax deal, $210 million a piece. That equates to about 42 million a year, 5 years. Does Booker and Cat, the big cat in Minnesota, Booker and Phoenix, do they get paid? Do they secure their bags, get the supermax, and be extended, or do they decide they don't? Do they turn down a supermax because they want to go somewhere else? Is Karl Anthony Towns and Devin Booker thinking of greener pastures somewhere else, or do they see themselves as the cornerstones for their organizations? Like I said, Devin Booker being Phoenix Suns, Big Cat or Karl Anthony Towns being that in Minnesota, as they continue to build, I think, a nucleus of young talent there. Um, but of course, do you? I think that's a win-win in the sense, especially when you're a cornerstone of building the organization and you can get paid considerably well for it. Why not? Uh, and then you have the young guns that's coming up. Ja Morant, Tyler Hero, uh, Barrett, Williamson, Garland from Cleveland. They're all in position to make about 181 million for supermax contracts. Do they stay put and get extensions, or do they go ahead and play it out and be like, nah, I don't want to sign anything and look at the opportunity to go somewhere else? Of course, we know Zion Wilson hasn't played. The last 3 years he's only played 82 games, in which those 82 games in which he's played, uh, it was said by his own vice president of basketball operations, that he should be paid as a supermax player, although he's only played a limited amount of games. Because when he does play, he shows a promise just where we can see that he is to be a superstar in this league. Would you bet your job on that as the GM or vice president or anything if you was to pay that type of money out to a player that's going to probably play additional 3 years over the next 82 games over the next 3 years additionally again? Not saying that he will. We expect him to be that he has recovered. He already has no restrictions for his particular injury, which he had broke his foot. So it's potential. Maybe he's back. We do see essences of it, of him playing with the windmill dunks and the plane and everything during while his team was in the playoffs. So he said he's been invigorated and ready to go after seeing them get to the playoffs. Of course, he has new uh, teammates in C.J. McCollum and Valanciunas, uh, Graham, he didn't get a chance to play with, so it remains to be seen. But they're again, they're up for extensions, supermax extensions as well. And then of course, the beloved LeBron James, not this year but next year, is up for extension, 2 year extension to net him 100 million, of course, 50 million a year. But as there's been talks, LeBron has stated that he may not re-sign with Los Angeles or do an extension if the team is in a disarray. and is waiting to see what is going to happen as far as the organization going forward. Do you blame the man? I know there's always been talks, controversy that supposedly LeBron James is the reason for players or the LA Lakers being in a certain way. Uh, always often jokes that he is the GM and not Pelinka or anything else. Of course, we know is all not the case, but it has been stated that he does have an influence in certain situations, being whom he is and the team that he is on, in which he is asked questions, in which he gives his opinion. But ultimately, that's funny to where you have a huge direct impact on your roster potentially, if that is the case. But yet you would come and say that would leave the team if the organization, depending on what the organization does, to get more help or to become better, when you are also advising the organization as well. Interesting. If that's the case, this is all alleged. Not to say that LeBron is making these shot calls. At the end of the day, I think Rob Pelinka has come up and he has stated himself that basically the buck end stops with him, but which is true. And of course, you had Jeannie Buss, who has come to say that she's not paying all this money and doing all this to be mediocre, not making playoff, getting to the play in. That's not what we do as a Laker franchise. And so, at some point, she would take it upon herself, and that might be cutting off a lot of people. And one of those could even be Mr. LeBron James himself. But it remains to be seen. We will see what's going on. Uh, in free agency talks, however, we do have a couple of situations to where we can potentially see different movements, as we was talking about earlier, that will somewhat. What's good, MEB? What's good with you this morning? How you doing? How you doing? So I don't know about the sun portion of it, Anthony. It's definitely one of those situations to where it's definitely one of those situations to where you can be the conversation can be had that he is yes sir, yes sir, appreciate it, appreciate it. It's definitely one of those situations to where it's been talks that he's going to be in with his son. He wants to play with his son. One of the other reasons he wants to remain around, or I don't necessarily know if it's play with his son or play in the league the same time as his son does. But in any case, I don't know if it's where he's trying to wait to see if he can get on with his kid with his son once he gets into the league. But in any case, I feel the same. If someone doesn't want to be around, especially at that type of money, why keep him? I understand LeBron James is a humongous talent. He's going into his 20th year in the league at this point. For championships, at one point was on a run where he was the name NBA championships and LeBron James was synonymous. But at this point, if you don't want to be here, fam, I'm not trying to keep you around. I could get I could get some fillers to put. I could fill in. And we have Anthony Davis. We have Russell Westbrook. Let's see what we can get. Additionally, if that was the case, that would be my mindset. Like we could keep someone around. They don't really want to be there. We start looking at and living in the past when individuals are shells of them or their former selves, or you're basically selling the fact of giving him money to stay and he's not the same person. And you're more it's just the name for the most part, but he's getting paid very good for basically his name. It's like naming rights. So, so for me, MEB, so AJ, for me, I think true that uh, most likely. Well, at the end of the day, you gotta think about it like this, and you bring up a good point. Let's think about Michael Jordan's children when they when they played. Never reached the heights that their father did, which is a tall task to ask for the most part. Never reached the heights that their father did. And I even think they attempted to jump it. And I believe one of them wasn't bad. It's just he wasn't his dad, and which was I'm very sure held his own weight at the end of the day. True that. I could get that. Like so, it's like that can be a heavy task or order to for asking anyone to come up to, like to play. Like we look at it, all the greats that are out there who have children to play. Barry Sanders, who had Barry Sanders' son, who never amounted to what his dad was, and he was a junior. So now you have, like you said, the Michael Jordans, or now you have Bronny that is looked at like it just doesn't fit well. Of course, we have other. Yeah, they wasn't that good. Well, they wasn't that good, but they definitely wasn't anywhere close to what their dad was. And so you have those situations, and so I think if you put LeBron's son or Bronny in the same situation, it's going to be a problem. Look at Shaq's son. Yes, nah. So he's a better shooter than his dad was, definitely. Two different positions, so I think that's kind of hard, but definitely. And what you brought up a good point, AJ, is that I would switch that to Steph. Steph is clearly better than his dad, so it works in some instances, but the difference also is that when you just like you was talking about Clay and Michael Thompson, is Michael Thompson pretty good. I think a rookie year, and all that. So yeah, definitely. So you're saying, yeah, Sheffield is way better, and like you're saying, so I definitely believe and see that's the difference in between Clay and Steph. Like Dale was okay, but he wasn't seen to where he could have applied pressure for Steph to be that. Michael Thompson a little bit on the other side, but he's not as heralded as like we're talking about LeBron or LeBron, D Wade, his son, is probably never going to get those heights unless he's a late bloomer. Um, you have situations like any of those situations. LeBron, Shaq, his son or sons, for that fact of the matter, to where his son is currently expected to get his name called. Is he a first rounder? Is he a second rounder? Or is he going to be waited around and just get value for him as an undrafted free agent? So all that comes into play when you look at it, and especially when it comes down to these father sons and stuff like that. Think about the son, or the one of the sons that just got the father son duels that just got added to the championship, where Gary Payton the second. Gary Payton the second is nothing like his father, although he does have a prowess for defending defenders. And as we know, his dad was nicknamed the Glove during his heyday. But at the end of the day, does Gary Payton the second continue to grow? And now we have him in conversations where he's like, okay, you're saying you can hold a torch to with your dad at the end of the day. But at this point, he has a championship. They're both champions. Yes. Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying, MEB. Overall, basically, when it comes down to overall, the Thompsons, Clay, his dad was a defender, and Clay was a ball defender. Clearly, that. So yeah, I can see what you're talking about. If Clay can get back to that, and of course, like you say, give GP2 time, he's going. Yeah. It's like a conversation we was having the other day, right? In which everyone says, well, actually, we was having it on Friday, where we had the conversation that if you give Wiggins time, Wiggins is going to be something. Of course, Wiggins is another one. His father, even though they didn't win any NBA championships, but he did play for the Houston Rockets. Excuse me. So just like that, we saying give him time. They expect him to be better. I think that is more so prevalent to GP the second than it is to Wiggins. But of course, we know Wiggins was the number one pick overall. So it was expected for him to be have some type of greatness because he was picked at that, and you want him to be a bust. So of course he fit the bill to be with Golden State to be like that third option, and then you have a couple of pretty good role players in that fact. So, but I think like you were saying, AJ, that GP the second will be more of a problem if you give him some time so he can continue to grow. He probably does need to stay in the Golden State offense so he can continue to grow before even one he gets traded. We got to take in consideration he just barely made that roster to begin with, but it proved out for him to be it proved for him to be a very important part of their championship run. So I do agree he definitely is an F factor. Yeah, he definitely was. It was good that they got him back because if they didn't get him back, I don't know what the outcome would have been. Because of course Wiggins did his thing in defending Jason Tatum, but when GP the second was in there, he caused damage too. Nice hands. Yeah, him between they all locked him down. Oh yeah, he did. He locked him down. So definitely. So they have a lot of X factors in Golden State. Is that the coaching? Of Coach Kerr? Is that the ability for Myers to get to put find players and put them in place? Is that their scouting? Is that their scouting division? Like, what's the secret sauce in Golden State to where they built 4 NBA championship teams over that course of 8 years? Been to the championship 6 times in the course of 8 years. Of course, one was a before mentioned 3-1 loss that they had, in which could uh, be stated that they only lost it because the breaking the monotony over their momentum when Draymond Green was fined and disqualified. He did not play in one of those games in which it allowed for Cleveland to build the momentum back. I don't know, but definitely a dynasty. It's a Kerr. I think it's Kerr. Like it goes to be said that Mark Jackson had the team, right? It goes to be said that Mark Jackson had the team. And they say that he built the team. But in all essence, he didn't build the team. He had Draymond, he had Steph, and he had Clay at one point, and didn't do what they've done now. Kerr comes in, they build upon it. Now it becomes, yeah. Mark did put it together. He helped put it together, but it was only a fraction of that when I look at it. Like Mark did something, but how long was it after Mark being fired did Golden State win the championship? And then after that, like we can't continue. I think we can't sit up and continue to say, oh, like okay, because we can't continue to say, okay, Mark put it together. He was there at the onset, and he was fired for whatever reason, and then they continue to build on that. So I don't think it's fair to continue to say that Mark put the team together because here we are 8 years after the fact, at least at minimum 8 years after the fact, in which they're still winning championships. We can't continue to put that on Mark because all he did, because I mean, yes, Steph became, but someone has to develop. You know what I'm saying? Of course, the process goes on the player itself, but it had to continue to develop, and they got better. Mark cannot, in my opinion, he cannot receive the accolades over the last 2 years, especially, or last 4 years. I say that the last 4 years because some of those players are gone. Barnes is no longer there. Iguodala wasn't there when Mark was there. Kevin Durant wasn't there when Mark was there. Uh, Looney, JaVale McGee is gone, and he wasn't there when Mark was there. So it's like, for the most part, the only people who was there when Mark was there is Steph, Draymond, and Clay, which they were young talents at the time. That's no difference if you sit up and put that took that same ideation and put it in what was Oklahoma City when they had Russell Westbrook, James Harden, and Kevin Durant. So if they would have been, yeah, Iggy, Yeah, so if they would have been able to do the same thing in which Golden State is, we might have a whole different outlook in the West if they stayed together and made it work like Golden State stayed together and made it work. And it becomes a difference in people, a difference in opinions at the end of the day, I think. Like they could have had we're talking about between the three of them, let's put this perspective. Between what could have been Oklahoma City with Harden, Westbrook, and KD, you have three MVPs, two Finals MVPs. In between the trio in Golden State, you have Clay, Draymond, and Steph, in which you have two MVPs and one Finals MVP. So think about what Oklahoma City could have been if they had the same idealization or put together that same mindset in what you have in Golden State with their trio. If they had that in Oklahoma City, I don't even think honestly we might not even be having a conversation about the Golden State trio if that had stayed together in Oklahoma City. Correct. So you know what I'm saying. So that's different, and not to mention that KD left to help Golden State get two of them at the end of the day. So it's I just think it's also a mindset thing, and that's the problem. Like no one like it like definitely a problem. So you know what I'm saying in many ways it could have been a good problem, ended up being a bad problem. None of the three are there. Harden did go on to Houston and won an NBA championship. Correction, won a NBA MVP, but it hasn't amounted to anything since then. Had Golden State on the ropes, and then they fell off. They faltered. He got traded at some point. He got his way, forced his way out of Houston. Went to Brooklyn where he was expected. Didn't do anything there. Got traded to Philly. Didn't do anything there. And now here we are. To where in a second we'll talk about him in a second. Then you backdoor that. Now you go another route. KD forced his way out of Oklahoma, went to Golden State, got two chips. Um, Basically was told by Draymond, "We don't need you. We was winning before you got here." He left in free agency, found himself in Brooklyn with Kyrie. Hasn't done anything since then. And then of course, last Russell Westbrook, the same, traded, sent off, went to Houston, teamed up with his old teammate. That didn't work out. Ball dominance, as we just stated. So he gets traded to Washington, sits there for a second. He's without Bradley. It doesn't work, or it didn't get opportunity to work. Turned around, gets shipped off to LA, gets to LA with LeBron and AD. Thought that was going to work. That doesn't work. So then you have conversations of him being traded yet again, unless they go ahead and Darvin Ham allows him to. They have a conversation and they decide, okay, we can make this work. It remains to be seen. Mm-hmm. You think that really, AJ Clay and Harden the same player? I think Clay is a little better than Harden in the regular season. I think Harden is a little better than Clay in the regular season. I think Clay is a little better than Harden in the postseason. It shows. I had to look at that. I gotta look at that comparison. Clay and Harden. Interesting. As I said any other time, come home, Clay. Come home. Uh, but definitely diving back in, right? So now we have a situation. It's some players that have player options for this off season currently, and which can change the whole landscape of the NBA for the most part. I can see that. Definitely, we know Harden disappoints, but in any case, I think Clay is a little bit has proven to be a little better in the offseason, even although he doesn't live up to what he does in the regular season. But so I can see your point. I definitely can see your point. Uh, five players that could change the whole landscape if they decide to opt out of their current contracts and go hit free agency. I don't know. Do y'all see? Let me know if y'all think they stay or go. Of course, that those individuals being one, Bradley Beal, two, Kyrie Irving, three, Russell Westbrook, four, James Harden, and of course, lastly, five, Zach LaVine, all able to opt out their contracts, team options, have player options to go ahead and go test free agency. Do y'all foresee any of them testing free agency? If so, who is testing free agency, and where do you think they would like to go? Ultimately, I don't foresee any of them going anywhere. Uh, I think Russell Westbrook stays in LA. We already heard conversations in which Zach LaVine is expected to re-sign and stay in Chicago and take the supermax that he can receive. I being after all the hoopla, everything, and James Harden coming, I don't foresee James leaving Philly. I foresee he'll go ahead and sign his. He'll opt in, take his money, and maybe test next year unless they give him an extension. Bradley Beal, he's interested. He doesn't mind leaving, but he's basically saying that it's going to be crazy. I do when you sit and think about it, I do think that this year is going to be crazy, especially when it comes to free agency, as we know it's due to start at the beginning of the year. I know my LB was going to chime in. That's his squad, Washington. Uh, does he really? You don't think a Porzingis and Bills connection is going would do well for Washington, LB? What you don't think that that'd be a nice connection with some added talent? Y'all got a few pieces out there. Kyle's there, Hachimura's there. I just wonder. Honestly, is Bill even the same player which has coveted him to sit and be seeked? Like, is he gonna have? See, I hear you, AJ. So, is he even going to have the type of season? Or is he going to be like Russell? What happened with Russell Westbrook, where he gets kind of like lost in the sauce, and it's like he's not the player that everyone thought they was going to get. It's one of those situations, especially coming off his injury, his wrist injury. A lot of work to be done to rehab. That's the song everyone sings there, Greg. You can't seem to put it together. Brooklyn, LA this year, Portland, a lot of teams that have pieces but just can't seem to put it together. But yeah, so definitely, I wonder what's going to be the outcome of that. But I mean, it remains to be seen. It's coming fast and furious, and we'll see it soon enough. July can't get here fast enough, not just for the 4th of July, but to see what this NBA offseason do. Of course, I'm chomping. I want to see what's going down, see what the Lakers is doing, see how we making moves. AJ, what's the Hawks going to put in? What's the Hawks got going on? Do y'all get Trey Ice Trey some help? Do y'all get rid of Collins? Send him on about his way? Is there a blockbuster deal that's going to come in place for some of these players? Like, what do you think helps um, uh, Trey Young get over the hump? Or should y'all had basically? Do you feel like y'all should have kept Luka and left Trey in Dallas? Like, I wonder what your thoughts are of all that. As you talk about that, I will. Okay, Collins cemented. Y'all need a big man. Or you think who's your current big man? It's on the tip of my tongue. Capella, or is Capella the man? Oh, no to Luca. Okay. I definitely think if you would have took them and switched them, that there definitely wouldn't have been. You wouldn't have the same outcome. I think Capella needs to go. I think actually Luca probably would have been better in y'all system from a player standpoint. But then again, that's another ball dominant player, and that might okay. Capella inconsistent. I think he's a ball dominant player as well. I mean, we all know Luka's a ball dominant player, so maybe he wouldn't in any system. Uh, hindsight, he probably wouldn't have been the best, but we can't take away currently what we see as his greatness. Um, Additionally, interestingly enough, marketing is always a thing. And when you see it in the case of the marketing, we have a situation to where the Utah Jazz have released their newest and latest uniform as they're going back to the yesteryears, back to the 96, early 2000s as a okay. Why is that? I mean, why before I get into this Utah this uniform, Utah unveils the uniforms as they're going back to the days of yesteryear, going back with that old purple, the old purple they used to sport with the mountains is the staple in which they're going to. Uh, Actually, they have four uniforms that's in slate. One being the like I said, the purple uniform, basically imaged and redone. Certain aspects of it where you can go take a look. And then additionally, also they're going with three other uniforms where they have a black one with the yellow, trying to keep with their Mardi Gras theme that they had when they left from New Orleans initially. A white one with the Jazz logo, a Simeon, and lastly I think it was a gray one. I think they have a white, a black. Oh no, a yellow, another yellow one, all yellow. So check out those uniforms. Um, I wish LA would get some uniforms. But you know, when you're greatness and you have a long historic feel to your organization, sometimes it's just you just don't tinker with that. And I think that's what LA has always done. Of course, we had the Black Mamba ones that they had 2 years ago. Then we have the Minnesota uniforms. For that, we have a scorer, just need a presence at center, and another one off defender outside of Hunter. Of course, always a recipe for to add to a team. Young talent. Matter of fact, where are y'all in the draft? Do y'all even have any draft picks? Let me see. I don't think Atlanta ATL show day. So Atlanta picked 16th in the first round and 44th in the second round. So two picks. So currently Atlanta has two picks in the draft. Of course, we all know that could change depending if some willing and dealing. So it remains to be seen. You might be able to pick up some of that or find some of that in the draft. Try and trade with Portland. Who y'all looking to get in Portland? I feel so bad for Portland. Dame. Small money markets, man. Small money markets. Oh, trade with Portland to move up. Go from 14 to 7. I wonder who they trying to get at 7. Interesting. A lot of moving and shaking going on, and hopefully see Roger at the pick. I got tracking. A lot of moving and shaking going on. Hopefully, you get this chance to see some blockbuster trades, some key key things to be moved. All that I'm there for it all. I'm there for it all. So of course, some key dates that we have is during the season. If you haven't been paying attention, like we said, the draft will be Thursday. After the draft, of course, free agency is due to start in the beginning of July. After that, of course, you're most likely going to see between right before the 4th of July weekend, there would be the California Classic, as we know, that's always had the summer league with the Lakers, Heat, Kings, and Warriors playing a quick summer league pickup for those 2 days. After that, of course, you have the Salt Lake City Classic held by the Jazz, in which the Grizzlies, Thunders, and 76ers play in. And then on the 7th to the 17th, you have the spring the summer league game in Las Vegas, the 7th through the 17th, as those picks and the new acquired players that need to get, or even other players that are that were undrafted free agents and they have been sitting around on rosters that need have an opportunity to make a name for themselves, get a chance to play 7th to the 17th. A couple of other key games as we go forth. The Warriors and Wizards will play in Japan for the Japan games in 2022, as well as right before the season, Milwaukee and Atlanta will play in Abu Dhabi uh, games in 2022 as well in October 6th and the 8th. And then, of course, the Chicago Bulls will be playing against the Detroit Pistons in Paris during the regular season, in which it'll be a regular season game, January 19th. In February 17th through the 19th, the NBA will have its NBA All-Star game held in Utah this year. That'll be 17th through the 19th. It'll be hosted by the Utah Jazz. Of course, there's going to be a couple of things in between there. Expect for the season scheduled to come out sometime in August, so all you NBA fans can have an idea of when, or where your team will be playing. Start to look at what games you're going to. Start to take a look at if you're going to be a season holder this year. All that type of stuff for the NBA for that NBA action. So, like you said, we're there for it. Of course, like you said earlier today, the Golden State Warriors will be having their parade as you walk them back. You know what? I feel kind of slighted because I felt like LA we were due to the part. You know what? I was just looking at him today. I was just taking a look at Dyson today, as he is. You know, Dyson is one of the members of the NBA Academy, in which the players from outside the U.S. Kind of like talk and engage with one another and get a check. So yeah, he's Australian. Yeah, I peep game. And that's the same system in which Josh Giddey came from. As y'all know, Josh Giddey was a standout player, youngest player in the NBA, was a standout player for Oklahoma City before he went down with an injury. He played in the NBL last. Yeah, actually, that's over. Definitely one of the players that was getting looked at, in which they helped him being a part of that academy. Now it's three players from the academy. Of course, two of them you have Dyson Daniels. You have the player from Arizona, I think Mariachi or something like that. I have to go back and Martherisis or something like that. I have to go back and look at him. And then, of course, lastly is I think his name is Ying Song or something like that. Lee, who played he played at Davidson, but he's a South Korean blower and player. You prefer Jeremy Grant over Collins, John Collins? I think honestly, in which at one point I wanted as a Lakers fan, I wanted Collins, but correction, I wanted Grant, but I don't know. Like I think Grant in Denver was amplified because he was with Jokic, he was with other players, and he when he went to Detroit, he didn't have the same type of players, and I think he kind of regressed, and it just showed that he needs other people to be able to play with. So I don't know if putting him on side of Hunter, Hurter, um, and Young will be suffice enough. I don't know to trade. I think Collins going there would make a difference. If you put Collins in Detroit, they got a couple of some young talent there with Sadiq Bey and a couple of players, but I don't know if Jeremy Grant would be the right fit. Okay, he would fit the system. Okay, I got you, AJ. I don't know if he, but just for me, I don't think he'll fit that system. Not without. I think you'll need other pieces for him to be a better fit because a young ice tray, all that in his veins. I got you. I feel you. Definitely. I can see where you're coming from. Uh Transitioning a little bit as we go into the last of the show for the day. Um NFL. As I stated in the beginning of the show, we was having a conversation in reference to the CEOs of companies, organizations in sports entertainment realm, he would be have to be the number one option. Well, that definitely helps. That definitely helps, AJ. Like, I think that was the issue, and that maybe probably an issue too. He asked for number one option money. He got number one option money, but wasn't truly a number one option. And I didn't understand the deal taking him from Denver and putting him in Detroit to where he was seen and inherited as that person. I just didn't understand it. I thought he was a second or third option as best at best. But I mean, he got that, he got his bag. You know what I'm saying? No one wants to deny you won the bag, but we look at it as like, well, what are they looking at? Who were they looking at? Or what did they see? But in any case, Grant, I think he still remains to be an option, a good option if he goes to the team. If he's not, as long as he's not the number one option, he can do enough work on the to make it to where okay that he can be seen as a problem. A 15 point guy, 15-8 guy, 15-5 guy over the course of a season that builds up and helps tremendously. You know, I'm very sure he gets off a couple of times here and there. So, but to be that number one guy, I think that's key. He wouldn't be the option, or he doesn't need to be the number one option in anyone's offense at this point, and continue to build on what he's already had. But like I said, the NFL, uh, we talked about earlier, like we talked about Vince McMahon being a CEO that's currently in hot water in reference to players. Correction, in reference to his organization where he's probably being looked at being removed by his board. Of course, currently in the same type of hot water, but we've known about him previously. Washington Redskins, correction, I stand corrected. Washington Commanders owner Dan Snyder, of course, is been in trouble for a little bit, as we already know. Back in October, Congress has started an investigation into Dan Snyder's and the workplace culture, and in reference to his ownership, and then in which he was removed from the day-to-day operations, in which his wife was given that title. Then, approximately 4 months later, Mr. Snyder and the Washington Commanders organization um, had a had the investigation concluded, in which they would find $10 million for what was found. Now, again, Congress has reopened an investigation that about complaints about the lack of transparency by the NFL into what was learned from their attorney, Beth Wilkinson, who delivered her report, but the report was delivered orally as opposed to written out, which has led to them going back in and investigating the situation again. So they have that. So during the time frame in February, a former employee has alleged that Mr. Snyder grabbed her legs or put his hand up her leg or on her leg under a table during a meeting, and tried to force her into his limousine after the fact, in which one of his workers or one of his people on the board kind of like relented and had him kind of like helped him out and stopped him from continuing with the actions in which he was doing. So what has happened is the Congress asked Dan Snyder to appear for questioning, to appear to come to the board. Actually, him as well as uh, Commissioner Roger Goodell were asked to come to the board, in which Roger Goodell is going to be at the board. I mean, uh, he's going to be seen, but Dan Snyder said he was not available to be seen and he wasn't going to be present. So now the Congress is asking and trying to figure out. They have went and done, because basically Snyder said he has a previous occasion to where he has to be at a award ceremony in, I think, Paris or something like that, in which why he can't not be present in person. So of course, the lead person on the investigation, being Chairman Carolyn Mahoney, Democrat in New York, has basically stated that we can accommodate you by having you do it virtually, just like we're having Commissioner Roger Goodell do virtually. Uh, of course, Snyder, they're waiting for response back from Snyder's attorneys, but it's basically they're saying that he has not presented or hasn't been anything presented that is foreseen as being formidable enough for him to be excused, or why he cannot be present. All it is in the first rebuttal was a bunch of things stating that they felt like there were some things that were affirmations that were not true and that they've disputed, but it wasn't a conversation. It wasn't any reply back to saying why or a valid reason why he cannot appear. And so they extended an olive branch, which he's due by Monday to set up an answer to give a response back, being today, in reference to him appearing at the in front of the committee via virtual, in which they're waiting to see if he's going to accept it or deny it. So we've had conversations before in reference to Snyder because he's been in the topic in news a lot over the course of the last 2 years, I would even say. So recently, especially this year, of course, we have talked about this aforementioned situation with him and the workplace violations. And then additionally, you have the situation to where it was found that he has two books in which he keeps, in which he was siphoning money off the second book and not reporting all the money to the league or the organization, which in essence was removing money out of the pockets of the other 31 owners. So we have a situation to where basically, why is he even there? Why is Dan Snyder still around? We understand that there was rumblings at one point in reference to Dan Snyder being removed from the being removed from his from being a owner, but we know that's a conversation which the other owners have to have, in which Roger Goodell came on stage that he didn't know or he didn't hear, that he wasn't sure if that was even the case. So again, Dan Snyder, why is he still a part of the NFL governors group, or correction, they're called owners. The NBA calls governors. Why is he even still around? Um, he's not a team player. I see you, Greg. Dan Snyder needs to be removed. He is giving the Commanders a black eye. Y'all in the news a lot nowadays, there, Greg. But we'll see. It will be seen, of course, as like I said, there's been conversations that he is basically uh, being looked at, and there's been talks and conversations about him being removed or that being voting or different things. So we'll see. We'll definitely see. But I like to hear. I know, Greg, you're a Commanders fan. You want to remove. Is there anyone else that think he has done enough to where he should be removed, or do you feel like he is his team? He reserved the right, and he should continue to remain in the NFL. You know what, Greg? That's a good point that you make. Is it because why is that though? Is it because they're not doing anything? Or is it just because Dan Snyder is caught and he's out there right now and he's at the forefront and everyone else is quaking their boots because now you have a situation where it's probably going to prompt other organizations or other government entities to take a look into their teams and stuff like that. Bad character. Okay. I got you. I got you. Additionally, also in more Washington Commander news, Coach Ron Rivera was fined $100,000 and stricken of two OTAs for the 2023 season next year, as he was assessed, as they went back and looked at the training camp for the year. It was assessed that excessive contact during practice. So we just had a conversation Friday in which Coach McCarthy for the Dallas Cowboys was fined $100,000 and assessed one OTA remove because for the same reason. Now we have the same conversation in reference to Ron Rivera, Washington Commanders coach. What is going on in the NFC East? Like y'all that fearful of one another where y'all got to sit up and violate uh protocol to get ready for y'all division? Is this what it's coming out to? Is this what it comes to? Like I'm waiting to hear conversations in reference to the Philadelphia Eagles and well I see Ron Rivera, but in case because but it did state that it was in reference to there was too much the contact was excessive, players falling on the ground, which was understood, and it was basically in the trenches from like defensive from the defensive aspect. And maybe it was Del Rio and Ron got fined. So, but yeah, where I came across it was stated that it was Ron Rivera that got fined. Uh, and then now you bring that up too, you the because Del Rio was in the news just a week or two ago in reference to Washington's making a lot of noise there. Greg, Anthony, where you at? That's your squad too. A lot of noise being made in Washington. It doesn't seem for the betterment of the team. But in any case, next year, like I said, they will be without two OTAs as well as a coach's pockets is 100,000 lighter in that aspect. So I just wonder what's going on. Whatever we got. Matter of fact, it's oddly enough that this seems to be all about the NFC East uh, segment because New York Giants linebacker Justin Hilliard was suspended 2 games for violating the NFL's ban policy as he took it said that he took a banned substance or a banned substance was found in his sample in which he basically came back and stated that it was all on him, but he took his partner's accidentally took his partner's medication in which was the violation. So what do you have to say when we had this actually Greg, you a New York Giants fan, correct? Not the Washington Commanders. You represent Giants, right? But yeah, so Justin here, fine. I mean, suspended for 2 games. Okay, I figured that. I stand corrected. So yes, he's fined for 2 games in which he's not going to be able to play. What do you say, Greg? What do you believe? Should we believe this? Like how many times I know we felt heard it a few times to where it's like someone said they accidentally. It's like okay, maybe the first person we could be like okay, it's a possibility. Then we get 2 or 3 players down the line, and we still have the conversations, or we're still having conversations in reference to a player that is being sat down for taking the banned substance, and there's always a conversation of I accidentally took this or that. I'm sure that it's someone in their camps that is making sure that hey, this is the right stuff that you're taking for those who are trying to stay off the ban list. Of course, I'm very sure you have some that are trying to find stuff that's even one mask or they can't find it or it's hard to detect and taking a chance. I guess everyone's trying to get an edge, especially at the beginning of the camp, so that way they can ensure that they have a position and then keep it pushing from there. But of course, 2 games isn't as much, isn't as bad. A couple of checks. Um, I'm sure that the first 2 games of the season aren't going to make or break the Giants in reference to uh, that, unless there's another injury, i.e., from Daniels or another one for Saquon, in which that would probably be a damage situation. In which, especially for Daniels, who is in a contract year, in which he was not able to get an extension, and he's basically playing for where he could potentially be next year as a free agent. And then, of course, lastly, of the NFC East, the Philadelphia Eagles have agreed to a 1-year deal with former San Francisco 49ers safety Jaquiski Tart as they look to strengthen and bolster their secondary, especially back as a safety, in which Tart can possibly get more playing time as the safeties are kind of thin, as we all know, as I talk all the time. My last impression of Tart is dropping the interception that could have basically solidified and locked down our opportunity to get into the Super Bowl this past year, in which he didn't catch the ball. He dropped it. Of course, we know the Rams went on to put together a drive, take the lead, and then Aaron Donald imposed his will, which did not give us another opportunity to get back in, and it was history. The Rams go on to play Cincinnati and win the Super Bowl. I hope Tart does the same for Philadelphia that he did for San Francisco in the last game of the season all year long. Other news, conversations, Jadeveon Clowney, defensive lineman for the Cleveland Browns, has basically stated that the only reason why he decided to sign back with Cleveland again was due to the fact he wanted to play with Deshaun Watson. Of course, Clowney last year coming off a 9-sack season, which is pretty impressive when you take a look at the fact of there's other players that was like 5, 4, but he had a 9-sack season playing opposite of Myles Garrett, which he's basically stated he wants to play with Deshaun. I think he looks and see that Deshaun has a good opportunity to bring in some W's in Cleveland when he does play. For that fact of the matter, if he does play, still remains to be seen. But that was his sole reason for signing. I mean, well, he did say that. He stated that he felt that him and Myles Garrett had a connection and that they worked pretty well together. But it was the overall factor and the defining point was the fact that Deshaun would be running their offense, and he felt they're pretty good about that. So, reading between the lines, is he basically stating that Baker Mayfield wouldn't have got the job done and he didn't want to play there anymore because of that, or he was up in airs about doing that? I wonder why. I wonder. Just saying, just bringing that in a thought to fruition. That's what I hear. And then, of course, lastly, as we talk about that, we just talked about how Utah has a lot of swag going on with their new uniforms. Taking a look at, have you seen the New Orleans Saints' newest uniforms as they're now all with the Florida Lease insignia on it. If you check it out, go check that out as well. So you can have a conversation about it. New swag. Everyone gets a new swag at the beginning of the season. Always something to bring it in the love of the fans, something for the fans to take a look at. I don't think it has to be anything that has revolutionized that aspect since the one NFL Color Rush days, and where, in my opinion, the most fires was the white and gold uniform for the New Orleans Saints. Of course, during that, we've seen the lime green Seattle Seahawks uniforms. As we knew at one point, the Seattle Seahawks were very had a bunch of different uniforms when they added that lime green with the navy blue. But of course, now the Saints are putting their bid in for fire uniforms. You know what? We'll have to put something together. I got an idea to come up to you, but of course, it's a shortened day today. Juneteenth, like I said, celebration Juneteenth was yesterday, but of course, some are observing it today. So, of course, continue to get your celebration on Day of Freedom and that of Juneteenth. We got right around the corner is the 4th of July, which is considered another Independence Day for our great nation. That's around the corner, only at a couple of weeks away, which is more celebrations to be had. NBA draft night coming up, NHL finals coming up for the Stanley Cup finals coming up tonight. A lot of more sports to be seen. Although the NBA season is done, NFL season is getting revved up and go. NCAA season for football is revved up, getting ready to go. MLB is moving along handily, in which we have more talks about that coming. It's all about sports. This has been your boy Trey this morning. Greatly appreciate y'all that showed up this morning rocking with me. Look forward to see you tomorrow. As y'all know, we're always here 09 to 1100 hours, Mondays through Fridays. We may have a day or two here where we have other things that go on. Got to get to work and do other things. But for the most part, here every Monday through Friday, 09 to 1100 hours. Myself, Bishop, we got a lot of stuff that's coming up as we get ready to start the countdown for the MBA, Military Basketball Association Finals, in which we're going to have designated days for certain for teams, those 16 teams or whatever. I think it is 16 teams that's going to be in the tournament that's going to determine who is the MBA champion for the year. As we already know, Luke Air Force Base took home the Western Conference championship, and the Screaming Eagles of Fort Jackson, I think it was, or Benning. I had to take it. I had to look it. But Coach Paul Parker and the Screaming Eagles took home the Eastern Conference championship. So we look forward to having conversations to appreciate it. Appreciate it. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, LeStanton. We look forward to seeing, talking with those teams, a couple of players as we get the lead in to the NBA Finals to see who's going to be crowned, who's going to walk away with that. And then, of course, just like anything else, you do it all over again. So hell to, as I said, the armed forces athletes decide outside of defending our great nation. You also continue to do those certain things in which continue to show the reverence in which you have to continue to play at a high level as well as do your job on a consistent basis. All right, this is Trey signing off for today. Look forward to y'all being information tomorrow morning. A lot of y'all probably are enjoying your weekend. So without further ado, show Lieutenant Chunt, fall out. See you tomorrow. Peace.